Lather Talk. Today we have a few guests with us to talk about the hot topic of acquisition disorder. So first up, there's my co-host Gerard,
Hey, what's up, everyone?
and we have returning guest Ross, and we have for the first time ever, we have Alex, founder of TryThatSoap.com.
Hey, everyone.
Yeah, so we've brought together kind of this little roundtable to talk about acquisition disorder. And that's what we mean by that is kind of the cycle that happens really any hobby, but in particular for wet shaving, it could be, you'll see it abbreviated as SAD, BAD, RAD, which is just short for either soap, razor, or brush acquisition disorder. And that's where you just want to try everything. You might, just really spend way too much, then regret it after trying it, try to sell it off, trade it off, whatever, and then you start the cycle again when you either look at or find out about something new. So I think that's kind of a quick summary of what we'll talk about, and there's a lot of different kind of facets of that cycle that we'll get into. But one big thing is we have Alex on today because in part TryThatSoap.com is trying to help you avoid some of those purchases. It's trying to catalog as many artisan soaps as possible, which is hard because there's new artisans coming out and new soaps coming out all the time, and also provide the note breakdown. And then based on your preferences and what you tell the website, what you like, ratings and whatnot, it'll try to recommend additional soaps to you, and even may turn you on to soaps that you did not know about before. So does that sound about does that sound about right, Alex?
That's definitely a core part of it, and really what was the idea behind starting the site. When I got into it, like I had no idea about any of the notes and scents and bergamot and all that. So it was really a project that I could work on to work on some of my coding skills, but get something out there that could be useful. And you mentioned the disorders. Like when I get into a hobby, I typically go hard into the hobby very quickly. I spend entirely too much money on shaving soaps the first year between samples and full size soaps and aftershaves and all that. And most of it I didn't like, didn't use. So that was kind of the idea behind it, was like when you're getting started, like you have a general idea of some of the regular scents that like cedar, peppermint, rose, stuff like that. So use that as a starting base and kind of get directed towards some of the scents that might be of interest to you, so you can at least get started. Because especially now, like there's just so much out there, it can be super overwhelming, and samples aren't cheap. Like I mean, you're looking at like $3 a sample for little half an ounce of soap.
3 shaves.
Yeah, 3 shaves at most, and then that's it. Or you just buy the whole soap, which is like anywhere from $15 to $25, and that's even more expensive there, especially for something that you may not like. But yeah, that was really where it started. It's expanded a little bit more, kind of a wet shaving hub or tool where you can store your shaves of the day, keep track of the things you have, keep a wish list and stuff like that.
Gotcha. And upon launch, were those additional features were those in place, or did you just kind of slowly grow it out from the database?
Slowly grew it out. The rating and recommendation part was there from day one. That was really the main feature that I had.
Mhm.
And then it kind of expanded. And actually, it was just soap at first. Like it didn't even have aftershaves or anything like that. And then I eventually had to redo a lot of it to make it work for like aftershaves and perfumes and like more artisan perfumes and stuff like that, like Chatillon Nooks, Zoologist, and kind of ones that have some sort of tie into wet shaving. But then talking with people using the site, with folks on Reddit, IRC, now Instagram, stuff like that, like kind of hearing what people want to use it for, and what I would want to use it for as a user, because I use the site as well. There's a lot of gaps in tooling, so to speak. Like you see people keeping spreadsheets of all their shaves and their den and stuff like that. I was like, I can help with that. Like here we can do this, and then kind of tie it in with additional features and stuff like that.
Now, how long has the site been around for now?
2000 October of 2016. It hit 3 years at the end of last year.
Okay.
So yeah, it launched October. I had started working on it in about February of that year, and that was like my background's more like scripting and like infrastructure automation. So this was my first time running, doing front end stuff as well. So if people have visited the site, they'll probably notice that the UI is not the greatest. There's a lot of room for improvement there, but it is something that built from the ground up. So
Got to start somewhere.
yeah, exactly. And that's actually something I'm working to improve the free time that I do have. I'm trying to improve the user experience on it.
Well, I mean, it's you're providing, and you've created a very valuable resource. Yeah, I was really surprised when the fragrances hit there because I'm like, oh man, does this mean he's gonna get into like, like the whole perfuming world? And like that's not. I mean, there's Fragrantica and other things that exist for that. But
I actually own Try That Fragrance, Try That Perfume, and Try That Cologne, the domains.
really, so
Uh,
Look
so
out.
you're saying there's a chance.
I'm saying there's a chance. I have a severe lack of time right now, but
Yeah.
there's at one. I don't know where it's going to go at this point, but at one point it was really like there's a lot of different niches that this concept could go through.
Mhm.
I have a couple other domains. I have Try That Whiskey, Try That Cigar, I've tried that vape. So I picked up a handful of them just because like you never know, and like it's the framework is kind of there, and it's really just getting the data populated so
Mhm.
that users can make use of it.
Now you're gonna get people hounding you to create one or all
Oh,
of
right.
those.
Yeah, I don't have the time for those. I barely have time for Try That Soap right now.
Well, either way, it's a valuable resource, and we definitely want people to be aware of that. Yeah, the shave of the day kind of, I think folks are recording it, taking pictures of it, and I've used it to kind of record and cross post. I think it's easily done through Reddit in particular. Any other sites that it can post to, or
It's just Reddit right now to
Mhm.
the R Wet Shaving and to the R Wicked Edge
Okay.
subreddits. It's been on kind of the backlog for a while to get Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well, and it's just again time situation. When I've
Sure.
got obviously the full time job, I have a 3 and a 5 year old. There's not a whole lot of time for extra things. So, and actually, I did actually just look into Instagram the other day. Instagram's actually kind of weird about what it allows you to do
Yeah.
because like with Reddit, like Try That Soap posts on your behalf. Like you basically give it permission for an hour to post. Try That Soap will post for you. It'll give you a link, and then if you want to go edit, you can do that. With Instagram, you actually cannot post on. From what I saw, you cannot post on a user's behalf. I don't know if you all use like the regran or anything like that, but I believe that's why they kind of copy and paste things for you, and then you still have to click all the buttons. So I've got to look into see how I can potentially get that to work because I know that there's quite a few Instagram users as well that are using the site, and I think that would be pretty valuable for them.
Because I do think it's like really good for people, and we're going to get into it right now, especially when it comes to sad, in of itself. Yeah, because I think I'm pretty much at like around 60 soaps right now. I don't know about you guys, as far as like software is concerned.
Amateur.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I probably had more. I probably had like close to 100, but I've either piffed it or sold it. So, but yeah, maybe that's something we should like talk about, like our own experiences with any of the disorders.
Well, because Alex had mentioned it before, like the first year, and how you almost kept none of them. I'm wondering if we could do kind of a closer look at at your journey, Alex.
Yeah, so when I started out, I bought a ton of samples from Maggard's. I think I did the kit, and I think the next purchase was probably close to $100 in samples. Like I bought a ton because like I said, I didn't know what any of the stuff was, and so I was like, well, I'm just gonna try a bunch and see what happens. And I had lurked on Reddit and stuff and kind of got a general idea of like what some of the popular stuff was, but there's some popular stuff that I don't particularly care for. So both from like maybe less of a base because most of the artisan stuff's all good. Like it's going to be way better than Parasso, like I started off with and stuff like that, or
Barbasol.
right, or like Colonel Conquer. They don't ask me about Colonel Conquer, but so like once I got that, I kind of got an idea. Started buying a couple tubs of some of the things that I liked. My first full tub purchase was from Dapper Dragon. I picked up Signature, Terre du Dragon, which is inspired by Terre de Hermes fragrance, and Green Dragon, and loved all those. Got the scale polish. Scale polish is still amazing, by the way. But at that point, like it just kept going. Like there's like limited releases are kind of were a big problem for me before. Like, oh, I don't want to miss out on this. I'm just gonna buy it. And then I would buy it and I would tell myself that I didn't like it. I would just sell it. And then selling things on the internet is actually a lot of work. So I didn't do any of that. But yeah, I kept buying it. I would pick up more stuff. And there was at one point where I had quite a bit over 100 soaps. I do not have that many right now because I've sold and got rid of a bunch. But like my wife would judge me and just mock me with all the soaps I had. Yeah, I spend too much money on soaps. The plus side is that it did help quite a bit when I was starting TryThatSoap, just because I did have some frame of reference on a lot of the like. So maybe something that people don't know is that the scent breakdowns, like they're weighted. Like it's not just like even. Well, it's mostly not just evenly split. Some of the newer ones that have been added with the user submission does just get evenly split. But for probably the first 2.5 years or so, like when I was adding them, I was either basing it off my experience or basing it off of the descriptions that the artisans or descriptions of the products. So there's definitely some where I would read the description and I'd try it and I'm like, oh, well, I had that completely wrong from the description. Like Sterling's Barbershop was one in particular I remember where I had tried other barbershops like Maggard's London Barbershop and I was like, oh, and I tried other ones that smelled exactly like that. And it's like, oh, Sterling's is probably exactly the same. And then I actually tried it one time. I was like, nope, this is vanilla. Like, this is super sweet. This is not like any other barbershop I've tried. And I actually had to go and edit that one and recalculate everyone's recommendations because it was just completely wrong from what I had thought it was based off of what I'd seen. Yeah, and I still buy things occasionally. Like I picked up the latest Declaration Grooming puzzle soap for Reddit. But I think in 2019, I did not buy a ton of soaps. I maybe 5, maybe.
I was gonna say single digits.
That's
Yeah, it was for what I
Mm.
paid for, it was definitely single digits. I got a couple of gifts from like the various Secret Santa
Oh, nice.
and gift exchange stuff.
Mhm.
But I did not buy a ton.
But
So
either way, kind of a stark contrast to previous years in wet shaving.
absolutely, absolutely. But the one thing I will say is like I've done this with every hobby. Like we were talking a little bit before about I've got a Scotch right here. Like when I really started getting into Scotch and whiskey, it was the same thing. It was just buy whatever I can, try as much things as I can to kind of really hone in like what I was interested in.
So yeah, so I was gonna ask, only buying like 5 soaps in 2019, was that just because, after reading the notes, you're just like, okay, I am interested in this, or was it more of just an effort to just stop buying stuff altogether, or both?
The ones that I purchased were ones that I had some interest in, like the Fougere Angelique. I was able to smell at the meetup over the summer, so I knew that I was interested in that. That one of the other one was, and it actually was a gift from Scott, was the this soap 2.0. So I was interested in that for fairly obvious reasons, I would think. But other than that, like I bought Ariana and Evan's Asian Plum at the meetup, so that was one that I smelled. I heard a lot of great things about that one. And smelled, I was like, oh, "Yep, I'm going to pick up that one." And now I don't think I've actually used it that much, so that might be getting sold. But reading a couple, and I've gotten a lot pickier about the brands as well, just because I've tried so many at this point that I have a pretty good idea of the ones that I like, and I'm going to let other people review them first. Before I was picking up brands that I had never heard of that no one was talking about. At this point, I've got to the point where I'm gonna let Ruds review them, or I'm gonna let Ross review them. Like I'm someone else can try them and guinea pig them, and I'll pick up the ones that meet the cut.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, as far as like soaps go, I mean, I think naturally in terms of the disorders, if you will, I mean, they're cheaper than your brushes and your razors. So I think it's so much easier to accumulate, these enormous amounts of soaps as opposed to, the brushes and razors. It's pretty obvious, but I mean, it is pretty crazy to see, BSTs sometimes when people are doing the old den thinning, and it's just tons and tons of pictures, just rows and rows of soaps and sets. And I mean, you could just tell how easy it is to just think that, like, I'm just gonna grab this one soap, like, and then all of a sudden, like, you see the next hot thing that's coming out, and you're gonna go ahead and get that too. It adds up so fast.
Yeah, and selling them like seems like a great idea, but it's such a pain to ship them off. Like, and if you're not doing lots, and people are not buying lots as much anymore.
No.
Like maybe 2 years ago, I did a big thinning, and I sold like 2 or 3 large lots, and they sold pretty quickly. And like it wasn't bad soaps either. So I mean, it was like good soaps in there and stuff. But then I had one this year, this probably over the summer, that I was trying to sell, and it was so many. Let me know if you split. Let me know if you split. I'm just like, you know what? It's just gonna sit in my closet. I don't care enough to split it and send you one soap.
Uh, I feel like we should keep going around and sharing whichever acquisition disorder or disorders that folks have struggled with. So, Ross or Gerard, I wonder if you'd like to tell us a tale.
I think Ross has a lot of brushes, doesn't he?
You'd be surprised. I think in terms of wet shaving gear, my affinity is towards brushes. I've certainly gone through some in the past, but I think my last count, I think I have like 7 or 8 right now. Like, I think people would probably assume that I have more.
I
But
assumed you had more.
yeah, no, I've only got about 7 or 8. I think it's 8. I think just this guy down here has one of them. But no, and majority of what I have are probably soaps, but I think my number is actually much lower than maybe Gerard's. I think I'm probably around 30, 35, if that. I guess you could say I subscribe a little bit more to, at least in my mind, quality over quantity, at least compared to most. And that's not like a knock on anybody. It's just, that's just how my den works. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat as Alex. Kind of at this point, at where I'm at in wet shaving, I've kind of narrowed it down to sort of the artisans that I tend to enjoy a little bit more and naturally support a little bit more. So it's tough, obviously being a part of the Daily Shave series. I mean, we're constantly reviewing a lot of different things, which is awesome, and I think that kind of that's also helped in the last couple of years you know with some of the purchases that I've made. I consider myself kind of lucky in that aspect to be able to try all these different things and try different artisans that I probably wouldn't get to try otherwise. But yeah, so I mean, in the grand scheme of things, fairly small den. And I mean, if I do have a disorder, so to speak, it probably is just with the soaps. Naturally, they're just a little bit cheaper. So that's probably where I'm at.
You mentioned it's like 30 is the current soap collection size.
Mm.
Was it bigger at some point?
Um, it might have been a little bit, but not. eh,
Not like double the size or anything like
No,
that.
it wouldn't have been double. And maybe in the 40s, if that. I tend to keep around the same number. It just happens that I keep around the same number, as time goes on. So it's been pretty consistent for the last couple of years at least.
You seem much more even keeled than our peers.
I know, but I feel like I think maybe because
Like
of
buy
the
purchases.
yeah,
You're kind
yeah.
of
I think because of the Daily Shave series, a lot of folks would assume that I have more, but a lot of those things, I don't necessarily keep around. Some again, it kind of goes back to just preferences, but I enjoy trying the new things and kind of giving my thoughts on them for other people, and whatever I don't enjoy, and then just move it on.
I think we have a lot to learn from you, Ross, based based on that.
I mean, the weird thing is, I still feel like in a lot of aspects, I feel like just naturally, I feel like I could slow down. Like, even though I don't have quite as much as I feel like most that really deep dive into this hobby, there's still moments where like I kind of feel like, do I really need to get this? Like I'm definitely, I have those moments a little bit more than I used to, because I was the same way. I mean, the first year or two, I went balls to the wall in this hobby, and over the last couple years is when I've really kind of honed in and narrowed things down, and I kind of know exactly what I'm after now.
Oh, that makes sense. How about you, Gerard? I know you haven't been overall, I guess, in wood shaving as long, but obviously you've come across uh, your fair share of products. Kind of what's your experience with acquisition disorder?
Yeah, I mean, last year was pretty bad. I think I'm kind of like still in that in that
The first step.
zone. Yeah, exactly. You're
The
admitting
first
that you have
step.
the problem, right? Um,
How long have you been wet shaving, Gerard?
actually, a long time.
Oh, interesting.
10 years, 10 years.
Okay,
Ish.
my mistake.
So
I don't know.
yeah,
I don't know why I said that.
yeah, no.
my
So
my apologies.
no, but it's a good thing to say because, like I said, like for like a good 5 years, like it was just Parasso Green and a crappy Badger, and I've said this before, and I recurred 23C. I was just there was it wasn't you know it was pleasurable in the fact that I wasn't using a cartridge razor, but I did not at all dive into like the artisanal end of it at all, and I was introduced to it by a friend, and like I go in there and he's just like he has like 30 soaps like displayed he has like a bookshelf of soaps, and I'm just like, what is this with matching splashes, and that was it. It was just like the cave of wonders opening in Aladdin, and then you're kind of like tippy toeing, and then you like turn on the light and all of a sudden like the treasure is there, and you're just like, this is what's out there. And that was kind of like the initial that was the introduction, if you will. And I mean, I was pretty good about it, but like, yeah, with I don't, doing I would agree with Ross, like doing the Daily Shave series, get introduced to a lot, but I don't necessarily keep a lot of that stuff. And then probably just diving into the Instagram end, like over the summer and stuff like that. You just see people they're just enthusiastic and everything about it, both just enthusiasts as well as the artisans themselves, and they make themselves so accessible and and things like that. And part of it I know is probably a little bit of a let me like try to sell something to this guy, but no, some of them are just that enthusiastic and they just want to include with that dude. They just kind of want to share it within it. Like Black Friday, Cyber Monday, like the Christmas season was I didn't intend for it to be that bad, and all of a sudden there's like 20 extra soaps, and stuff like that. And I got rid of like 20 soaps at the San Diego meetup here in California in October, and then like that was moot by November.
You're just making room.
But like that's the thing. I feel like I'm good. One of the last things I got was probably the same thing. I got Puzzle, near the end of the year, but I told myself, I'm just like, you know what, like this is good. I was joking with John and Ross. I'm like, I think I bought 7 tobacco soaps in 2019. I didn't even intend for it to happen. I'm just like, I guess I like tobacco, you know, and here we are. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be like, curbing because I'm pretty much good as far as like I feel seasonal stuff, like all around stuff. Think brushes and talk about brushes and razors. It, I have a good amount of brushes, probably less than 20, but none of them are like overly expensive. I am planning on picking up a declaration, like eventually, but no timetable on that really. And then razors, I definitely have. I was gifted a 6S, and that's probably the most expensive razor that I own. but everything else, I have a couple of vintage. I still have the 423C that I have, and stuff like that. I don't see myself getting into razors, only because I feel like I get already excellent shaves as it is. So uh, I don't see myself like dropping, like 300, 500, $1,000 on something where I'm not going to get that much of a better experience from it. Just at least in my head. And I think people feel the same way about soaps. Maybe I'm not going to get into soaps because I feel like I'm not going to get that much of a better experience anyway.
I think that's where soaps are different though. Like with the razors or the brush, like they're all pretty close, and it's not. I mean, obviously you have your different tiers there, but like you're not a $300 brush and a $300 brush they're not going to be that different. But with soaps, I mean, you could have two different bases or even the same base, and you could have a completely different scent. Like the scent really opens up a lot more variety, so to speak, than the razor. At least, kind of from my perspective, like you're not getting as much variety with the brushes and razors as you are with the soaps, just because of the scent aspect.
Yeah,
No,
I think so. I think some of the razor makers are trying to kind of make it a little more difficult. You got your various blade gaps now that are offered from different razor makers. The adjustability aspect that's kind of been kind of big the last couple of years. It's been making a comeback. But yeah, I mean, I definitely see what you're saying in terms of sense. It really does make a pretty big difference.
yeah, and I think I would totally agree with that. I think with any either hobby or I don't want to use the word addiction, and it's probably what it can lead to, but when you just like get into something that kind of like hits those like I really like this note, and you just kind of like go down that hole, and yeah, I would say predominantly for me, scent is the number one reason I'll pick up a soap or a set of something. Like bases, I don't even want to say base is number two, because I feel like most of the time I can already get a great lather out of most bases out there.
I completely agree with that. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
the I've heard the term singularity thrown around
yeah,
recently with the bases. Like, there's so many top-notch bases that really at this point you're only basing it off of scent. Like, unless you're going something just completely off to the side. Like, if you're going with the top artisans, like you're getting a great shave out of that. So scent is the only option at that point,
mhm.
or just supporting your favorite artisans. But uh, all that being equal, like it's scent.
Yeah. I think when it comes to the soap acquisition disorder, and I think you know at what point do you get the burnout aspect of it? Do any of you guys have like a story as far as like that, as far as burnout is concerned?
I don't really have too much, I guess, in the way of burnout stories. I think I've definitely gone through like I would term it more of a lull, not really a burnout, but I mean, there's just sometimes where things get busy and life changes. I think there's definitely lulls. I don't think I've ever really experienced a true burnout per se, but I've gone through like a lull where it's just it's calmer, not as many purchases, maybe not even shaving as much. But yeah, no true burnout.
What about you, John?
I think I took a detour. So around the time where my now 6-year-old son was born was the time where I really embraced kind of the journey going from shaving to fragrances, because that's why, and that's kind of very similar to Alex. Acquiring the soaps, a lot of the fun was like, oh my gosh, oh, this is a dupe of this, but I've never smelled this, so it doesn't matter, it's brand new, exciting to me. And then eventually going over and either trying the actual fragrances or clones of it, or discovering decants of it, like top 10 millimeter um, little, basically large samples of these pretty expensive fragrances otherwise. I really got into that around the time my son was born. and I think that kind of yeah, it is more of a lull in the shaving part, but it's the fragrance journey was very connected to shaving, so I feel like it's just I did a deeper dive onto the part that I really really liked about the shaving soaps. It was yeah, I wasn't chasing formulas necessarily because as long as they gave me a decent shave and didn't dry the heck out of my face, I was pretty happy with that. But I detoured into fragrances every now and then. Where like this past fall, I kind of touched back on it because I feel like I was missing of all the things we just talked about, like tobacco fragrances. I could really use a nicer one. So I was kind of filling out more pieces, moving some fragrances that I picked up from previous kind of like deep dive, move those off. So I do go through cycles, and I don't know if you guys have other major hobbies, but I feel like when one lulls, I pick up another, which is not the best thing to do financially. So, and the major ones that in the past maybe decade of my life are shaving, fragrances, and guitar pedals. Like that one, the last one was just like, what the hell? But
Is there hobbyist guitar pedals?
there's I mean there's like art the equivalent of artisan guitar pedals and like waitlist
Oh
and like
yeah.
oh I gotta snatch up this next one.
Oh yeah.
There's limited editions where it's like a special paint job or someone will do the art for a release. You can imagine that like something that's already a couple $100s would even bump even more, right? And let alone secondhand market. So uh, that was definitely a more expensive hobby, but
Are people as passionate about guitar pedals as they are about soap?
I don't know if passion is the right. I mean, yes, but so electric guitarists, especially, are known to be very fickle. So they'll be like, "Oh, I need a new overdrive pedal," and the same thing is like, "Oh, I saw like I'm just scouring Instagram or different forums and looking at what people's pedal boards are. It's like, oh, like there's that visual aspect. I'll hear it, right? But there's not that much differentiation once you go to certain, like you said, tiers, right? So something over $100 versus sub 100. Uh, I think those are distinct. But then once you start creeping up, it's really how much do you drop and how much do you want to show off. I mean, honestly, and that overlaps into the shaving stuff as well. Like, how much was that razor? How much better of a shave is it? It's not about how much better of a shave, but man, is it like a mirror polish or made from titanium or like just different stuff like that where it's something you can flaunt and that's fine, you can enjoy it. So yeah, so I cycle through different hobbies. The guitar one though, at least you're using the stuff, but I realize I can be happy with more budget friendly stuff after trying. Like I definitely tried some of the more expensive things and realized nope, not a good idea. Wife is not happy, and that's not making me happy or not being happy. So, and back to what shaving we go.
Yeah,
Make
no, no, you know what? I think that's a good idea because like we just happen to be talking about, soap acquisition disorder or brush or razors, but like there are tons of them. Um, I wouldn't say that my wife has a disorder when it comes to anything, but like she's into nail polishes, nail lacquers, and there are artisanal nail polishes and nail lacquers. There is a Reddit community on it, and things like that, where you can have people like doing their own, like making them by hand and shipping them off, either starting on Etsy or like, doing their own websites and things like that. I think in any given hobby, there's going to be something similar that people are going through. It could be guitar pedals. I would say I don't want to say it's like I'm a food I'm into food. I'm into like food culture and things like that. I'm in Southern California, and so our food culture scene is top notch. When it comes to a lot of things, and yeah, like you kind of wonder like, oh, how can people go to these places they see on Instagram, like wait an hour, 2 hours, 5 hours like in a line for something that no one else gets, and as part of that, um, like we talked, John and I talked about like FOMO, the fear of missing out. Like, in soap, it's the same thing. Like if you have a limited edition, like and it's something that you think you're going to want, you feel terrible if you don't, get it. Same thing with that. Like everyone's going to this place, that's popular, and all of a sudden, like, if it's a restaurant, and all of a sudden, like, you want to go in that line, you want to see what all the fuss is about. And yeah, I think there's like just multiple levels on it as far as the person's reasoning, because I talk about, like, I have what, 60 soaps. Rossi said he had 30. John, how many do you have?
I did want to say I didn't grow up my soap collection that much, but I was looking at my spreadsheet while you guys were talking, and I am just under 100 now, and like I did not want to be near that number. I think in the beginning of 2019, maybe end of 2018, I was like, my mental number, the number I had in my head that the collection should never go over was 50, 60 max. We are beyond that. So I mean, I've been slowly getting rid of stuff, but I do need to like do a major cull of it. I think 50 would be a sweet number. I have the advantage of borrowing stuff from folks, like friends locally or even online, people who are kind enough to send samples or tubs, and I'm happy to do the same, right? That way we can try it, especially if it's like the quote unquote latest and greatest, without having to add another tub to my collection. But getting down to 50 might be hard, because I think I forgot if Alex, you were saying like there's you kind of know which artisans you want to support, right?
How ridiculous does that sound? Getting to 50
Yeah,
might be hard, right?
That's from 100 is hard.
And I get that, and right. So and here's the funny part, right? Like I kind of like did like a little like some general math. Yeah. I'm like, typically I can shave every other day, right? 365 days a year, that's about 180 shaves. Mm-hmm. And you get about maybe, I don't know, depending on how you load, 40 to 50 shaves per tub of soap, right? So that's technically about 4 to 5 tubs a year for me. I'm at like 60. So I have about 10 years worth of shaves at minimum on hand.
Mm-hmm. And that's not even factoring that soaps can go bad.
Oh yeah, and that is definitely a possibility. But yeah, like I have enough soap for at least 10 years.
Right.
I think we have there's a natural mindset that nobody really wants to admit it, but it's like you have your scents that you absolutely love, and you have the ones that you really, really, really like, and there really should be a distinction between the two. And you would think based off of that it would be easier to part with things. But when you see something, when you're looking at, like, just say in my case, the 30 soaps, I'm like, I really, really like pretty much all these at the very least. But at the same time, it's like, really, like that sounds ridiculous to say.
I think soap is the primary one. I mean, I don't have. Well, how about your? Well, you got a good amount of brushes, John, though, don't you?
Not too much. I am, I think, 25 when we last talked. 25, and when we talk about acquisition disorder, in my head, I was thinking like that cycle, right, where you're picking up a lot, looking into it, watching videos, reviews. I need that one, pick it up, and then kind of go crazy. With the brushes, it's been slow and steady, and I really don't regret. Like, I don't regret any of the pieces. I look at it like, do I need a purge? Like, I mean, yes, from the number of like, I don't need that many brushes for one face, but I really enjoy it, like, as a showpiece, as an art piece. Like, oh no, I got this because I don't know. In general, I like pretty shiny things. So.
These are a lot of words of someone that has a problem that won't admit they have a problem. Like, no, there's no problem. It's fine.
I'll tell you when I've had enough.
Right.
I mean, it could be worse. You could have 100 Beanie Babies still, I guess, at this point.
Still, I like how you had to add the still caveat.
Now, Alex, you only use one razor, right?
What?
I pretty much only use one razor. I have a couple vintage ones that I got recently from one of the Secret Santa gifts, but I've had a Wolfman razor for 2 years, and that's pretty much all I use.
If you're gonna have one, you're doing it right.
Yeah. I'm the type where I'd rather spend extra money and get something quality and just use it.
Maybe you can flip it for $2,000.
Right.
Cha-ching!
Right. Yeah, just making money left and right here. No, Well, that's actually something I started to kind of look into with the site is being able to kind of parse through all the shaves of the day and identify stuff that is in my den, but I haven't used in a year. Like, do
Mm.
I really need this still? Like, why do I still have this if I'm not using it? Like
That
I've just gone through stuff manually a couple times to kind of like, do I really want this? Like, I don't remember the last time I used it, and kind of set it to the side and didn't necessarily get rid of it right away, but like, did I go looking for it? No. Okay, it's definitely gone there. But I kind of get the feeling that there's a lot of people where they have a bunch of stuff and they don't realize that they haven't touched it in a very, very long time. So that's something I'm looking into to try and maybe help people. Uh,
does remind me, does the site, does it kind of compile like those like statistics for shaves? Like I know there's actually an app out there. I think it's called Shaving Buddy or Shave Buddy or something, and it will actually over time it will compile your usage of, like how often you use this brush, like what percentage of your shaves in a given time period, what percentage you used it. So it kind of gives you a pretty cool breakdown of like really what you're gravitating towards more.
yeah, it doesn't do that now. I mean, if someone is using the shave of the day tool or the den, like the data is there, it just needs to be put into a presentable format.
Gotcha.
I mentioned earlier that one of the things I'm working on when I do have the time is the user experience, and the new style or new UI that I'm working on actually has a lot of really cool graph options, which I'm hoping to incorporate that and kind
Mhm.
of, I don't want to say like full social media, but like having that profile where other people can kind of see that, hey, this person really likes this, and from talking with them, like I know I have similar preferences. Like, let me go see what they're looking, because maybe I'll check out some of what their favorite things are, or
Mhm.
um, kind of stuff like that. So like the data is all there. I just got to put it into a presentable format for people.
Gotcha.
I think that'd be a great feature. So kind of like uh, a metric tracking like maybe last date used, and then number of like total number of times used.
The one thing I was thinking about doing that I think would probably make some people not too happy is I do have some data on MSRP of soaps. So just put a big ol' total den value on there and just make
Oh.
some people feel bad about themselves.
Oh.
Uh, but I haven't implemented. I don't know if I'm going to implement that, but and then there's a lot of machine learning opportunities there as well. Like even image, like you upload the picture and it'll kind of look through it, compare pictures, and kind of try and guess at what you shaved with. Stuff like that is kind of stuff that I want to work on, and you need. I keep saying I don't have time. I really need to prioritize it instead of like Rocket League. Um, but yeah, there's.
Have you ever had a prank happen and no one realized it was a prank?
I feel like you're trolling me right now. This wasn't necessarily. So if you're not,
I'm not. So you're thinking of something.
so the Reddit Lather games last year. Um, so for those who are not familiar, it's basically there's a different theme every single day. Sometimes it's use a tobacco scent. Sometimes it's use a particular brand, whatever. Uh, I put I did so I didn't tell anybody. I just put a ton of clues in my post. Like I was misspelling words. I was doing like not super obvious, but at least I thought they were obvious enough for people to catch on. No one noticed a thing. And so at the end, I just went on a rant and just yelled at everybody for like no one picking it up. Like I was spelling people's usernames wrong. And like for those that know me, like I'm pretty anal about like grammar and spelling and stuff like that. Like I get super irritated if I don't do it right. And like even on like forums and stuff like that, like I try and make sure that it's proper grammar. No one noticed anything. So like I tied that into the site where if you basically got the code, it brought you to a page on the site, and I had prizes lined up. I had Magnet gift cards lined up for people. No one even picked up that there was a scavenger hunt. Uh,
Oh,
and so this year at the Ladder game, people were like, reading into things way too much. And I was like, no, there's nothing. And at the end, they're like, well, I found this. Like, I was getting messages on Reddit from people. They're like, yeah, I found this. I found this. I'm not really sure what this is. I was like, dude, there's nothing. Like, I didn't do anything. And like, people weren't believing me because of the rant I went on. So yes, I have done things like that before, and people did not notice.
Your well, what would you be your one piece of advice for someone new to wet shaving, kind of want to explore, but how would you help them avoid the pitfalls that many of us fall into?
It would be to find like a group of people that you'd be willing to like share samples or things like that without like maybe having to purchase. If you can do it locally, it's great. Like Alex said, like you go to any place where you can grab some samples, Maggard's, West Coast Shaving, Rheumatorium, all of them. Like yeah, before you know it, yeah, sure, you have like you don't think it's that bad until you spend like $100 or $150 or more on just samples. And the other thing would just, to be honest, like just getting to the habit of practicing restraint from the beginning, because it's too easy. It is so easy just to go on there, and it's not like the big retailers don't know it. I mean, like West Coast Shaving, they offers free shipping on most new items. Maggard's has like the edge shipping. Spend over $50 or whatever, like get free shipping and things like that. And that's nothing. I think we can all agree like $50 is nothing. Like you can do that, with like a single set nowadays, and things like that. So just understand that it's a lot easier to fall down to the rabbit hole and a lot harder to just kind of keep your eye, just like, again, practice some restraint. And I don't mean that in terms of for any artisans out there that are looking to sell, because I mean, truth is, a lot of them, if you have a good product, you're going to sell your product anyway. But I just think like for a consumer, it's just very good to know that things are just way too easy. It's way too easy for us to fall into the pit.
I mean, my obvious answer is use TryThatSoap because that's what it was designed for. But really, like what Gerard said, like if you have the opportunity to go somewhere where you can smell things, like do that and get a general idea of what you like. Even if you don't have access to like a Maggard's or a Pasteur's or a West Coast Shaving, like to go to like a Sephora or a Macy's or something and just smell some of the colognes. Like I, there's a couple wet shaving artisans that are very, very good at perfumery. So you may not get like, and that's to say that like perfumery and shaving soap scents are for the most part not in the same realm. Like there are very different things there. And that's to say that there are a couple that do it very well. So you may not get exactly what you're looking for by smelling like these more commercial perfumes, but you can get a general idea. Like a lot of them have a main note. Like you can get an idea of what sandalwood is. You can get an idea of what like a leather is. But even then, there's a lot of more notes that are just really common that people know, like leather. People know what leather smells like for the most part. People know what tobacco smells like for the most part. So you can get an idea. So like once you get an idea, kind of use that to drive you rather than just buying random stuff. Or worst case, like I've generally been a fan of like don't listen to what other people say because they may have different preferences than you. But there is something to be said that like if a lot of people are saying, "Hey, this is really good," maybe then try it out. But you've got to be careful there because you don't want to. There's a lot of influencers out there. You don't want to fall down that trap of needing to try every single thing. Right, right. I'm talking to all of them right now. You don't want to fall down that trap of trying.
We may not think of ourselves like it, but I mean enough people watch this to where they're listening to what we use and things like that. So
well, I mean, like even the people that aren't doing videos or anything like that. Like even just reading Reddit, like the shave of the day thread, you can tell what the popular brands are. You can tell what the popular soaps are. So I mean, read that. Read some of the descriptions that people are doing. Like some people just post exactly what they shave with, but then there's a lot of people that will post what they like a paragraph rundown. Like
In
read
depth.
it, see what you say. You're gonna get more insight than just the artisan's write up of it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. The write-ups are good. I think the write-ups sometimes are underappreciated. I mean, there are some people that really spend some time writing up, their thoughts and their review essentially of things. I mean, I think some of them are good enough to where you really do feel like you could get a true interpretation of it. I think initially it's really hard for me to actually say this, but I really do think that samples definitely are the best way, and to almost try as much as you can, because I think then that much quicker what your preferences are, and then you're not stuck buying all these different things down the road and getting caught up in it. I think the samples are obviously the cheapest option in terms of your soaps and whatnot, and I think just trying as much as you can early on, just to kind of get a sense of what those preferences are pretty beneficial. That way, you're not spending nearly as much down the road.
I think my piece of advice it's applicable, I think, to multiple hobbies, not just shaving. But as for shaving, it's more a hardware piece of advice. And early on, I think technique really comes down to it, right? And if you're trying like a dozen different razors in your first year wet shaving, I'm gonna say you're doing it wrong. Do some research. I read or watch 5 or 6 different reviews, make a purchase, and stick with it. Especially with razors, right? If you only stick with it for 1 or 2 weeks, only using a couple different soaps with it, I don't think that's enough data points. And if you're a beginner wet shaver, especially, you're still learning angles. And every time you pick up a new razor, you gotta learn its different properties, and that includes the ideal angle. So if you're doing brushes, if you're doing razors in that first year, just really limited to give it at least 6 to 8 weeks for any piece of gear before really determining it's no good. If something's like too aggressive for you, that's pretty quick. If you're if you're cutting your face up and not having a good time, I think that can speak for itself. But then again, if you're thinking about straight razor shaving, right? That's 6 to 8 weeks. It's like nothing. It's going to take more time than that to really perfect that technique. So don't be too quick to sell off stuff, and try to jump onto the next thing. All right. Well, I guess as we sign off, I want to make sure that people can find everyone that participated today, and where they can find you on the internet. So first up, co-host Gerard, where can folks find you on the internet?
Easiest place is just Instagram. Hey Gerard Shaves, all one word. Also on the West Coast Shaving Daily Shave. I'm always in the comments, things like that. So those are the easiest ones.
Okay, thanks. And next up, Ross, where can folks find you?
Also, as part of the West Coast Shaving Daily Shave series, and also on Instagram, it's at Nova_shaves.
Awesome. And our special guest, Alex, where can folks find you and your works?
So the main place is the site TryThatSoap.com. There's a contact form if anyone needs to reach out with suggestions, feedback, questions, help, whatever. And then social media, it's TryThatSoap on both Twitter and Instagram. I do check them somewhat often. I don't post a ton. I need to up my game there, but I do, I have them on my phone, so I'll see the notifications if people shoot messages or anything.
Great. And I'm John, and you can find me on most platforms under Latherhog on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. So I want to thank everyone today for their time. It's a great conversation. I feel like we only kind of scratched the surface of this topic, but it was really cool to hear how each of our journeys, how they're different, how they're similar. And I do hope that listeners will find these pieces of advice, especially if you're just starting out, find it valuable. If you guys ever have any questions, I would say don't be shy to contact any of us. We just shared our contact info, and we'd love to help you kind of get the best out of your shave, whatever that might mean and where in the journey you are. So thank you everyone again. Thanks everyone for listening, and we hope to catch you next episode. Thank you for listening to Lather Talk. If you're enjoying the podcast, please like, share, and subscribe. We appreciate your time and support and hope to catch you next episode.